Hey, Mega Moms! Jessica Hensley here, and I am joined by my new friend, Flor. Hey, Flor.
Hi, Jessica. How are you?
I am great. So, I don't want to butcher your name, but I mean, really, it's not hard. Flor de Maria McNally.
That's correct.
Definitely didn't have like any rolling R's or any of the. What did you say
Not
it? You say it
necessary.
the pretty way.
So in Spanish, it just sounds so, it sounds so obnoxious. It's Flor de Maria McNally.
It's not
But in
obnoxious.
English, I just say Flor. That's fine.
I love it. I love it. So I'm so excited to interview you today. We got to meet you. We were introduced to you by our mutual friend, Nellie Duttinger. And Nellie was a speaker at our abundance conference just like a month and a half ago. And we were talking about the conference, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I know who needs to be here. My friend Flor." And she was telling me about you. I'm like, "Wow, this lady is a rock star." So you came to the conference, you brought your whole family, like it was a last minute thing, right?
The unconventional life.
I love it. I love it. So you brought your husband and you had a newborn. I think your baby was like 6 weeks at the time. Is that right?
Yes, 6 weeks. Yep.
Yeah. So, okay, so introduce yourself to our tribe. Where do you serve? Just tell us like how many kids do you have? Tell us a little bit about you.
The whole spiel. So,
Yes.
um, my name is Flor McNally. As Jessica said, I am a mom of four. My oldest is 5 years old, and my youngest is 3 months now. So when we were in Orlando, he was 6 weeks, but now he's 3 months, and he's so cute. He's my first boy. So I have
Yeah,
three little
pictures.
girls. Yep. So I've been in real estate since 2015. And as we were talking right before the show, I've been on this journey to, well, first of all, I feel like you have to get in this business to prove something. And I wanted to prove that you could scale deep relationships with hundreds of people through the use of technology. And also now I'm on a mission to prove that you can do this without having to hire agents. Like I feel like that idea is being pushed from every angle and it's not necessary. So
I love this. And so you've told me that you have had this path for the last 8 years. So it was definitely, I feel like it was more trendy maybe at that time to have the big agents, to follow the MREA method, right? And so what made you decide, like, no, I can do this without having other agents on my side?
when I figured out, okay, so I made my first hire and failed miserably. And so I realized that it was because I didn't have any kind of systems in place. I was just kind of like manage these contracts. Um, and that's really the only thing that I needed help with at the time because I've always been really high units. So at the time when I hired that person, I had seven under contract and I was a pretty new agent. Um, and so I sat down with myself and I said, what do I want this experience to be for the client? Like, what does it look like for the client? And I drew out this client experience map. I developed these checklists and I found and developed a lot of pieces of technology. I don't know if it's freezing. Is it
It did for a
freezing?
second, but we can hear you fine now. Yeah.
Okay. Um, And so then I figured out that, there's all this technology out there that you can use to scale that experience for the clients, like very customer relationship centric. And so it's like I can do this on my own. So I kept pushing the limit. And not on my own. I shouldn't say that because I do have a team of administrators. But what I mean is, using systems, people, and tools to just keep me as a single agent because my standards are one thing and another agent's may be another. But also like chasing around the agents. You, I guess in summary, like you have to figure out what sparks joy for you And for me, it did not spark joy to have to coach other agents or babysit other agents. I'm
Yeah.
invested in my own success and I have my own vision and in the success of my employees.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I had a brokerage, like a boutique brokerage, and that was basically the model I was after, right? I was hiring agents, training agents, and then I decided I didn't want that headache. I didn't want the paperwork and the auditing and all of that. So I moved my brokerage to Keller Williams as a mega agent office, and we did it as a team. So then now this like mentality switched, and so I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. I'll do MREA, and that was the plan. But what I found was I got tired of wanting it more than they wanted it because again, I would be
Yes.
like coaching them and I'd be like, okay, just make the phone calls. This is what you have to do. How many calls did you make this week? How many transactions? And I was spending so much time coaching them that my business began to suffer, right? Because it does, it's a drain, it takes off. And so I love that sounds like you didn't really go down that road. You saw the writing on the wall for the teams around you and you're like, nope, that's not for me.
Yeah. And I did. I mean, I'm a very self-aware and I'm very introspective. And so I was like, maybe it's just a challenge that God is placing in front of me for me to grow and be better because I'm highly competitive and I like recognition. And so I'm like, this is a chance for me to humble myself and give the spotlight to somebody else. But I was feeling drained. I felt drained. I would come home. I wouldn't look forward to coming into work anymore. And so I just got rid of everybody. I just got rid of everybody. And I'm like, I just need to focus on myself. I need to pour into my employees and I need to just grow the vision of my team as much as possible. And if I could close 150 by myself, I can do 200. And that's just,
Yes. I should have led with that. I mean, I did put that in the write-up, but so Flor has 4 kids under 5. This last year, she closed over 150 transactions, 36 million in volume, and she did it with an admin team. So tell me, Flor, and that's what I call a micro team, by the way. I know it's maybe a relatively new term, but the thought is, opposite of mega, right? You're not a mega team, you're a micro team, and you're way more profitable. So let's start with give us some background and history on why you got into the business and then what made you decide to hire your first person and what position was that?
yeah. I started the business in 2015. I was a bartender for 12 years. And I would come home from work really, I mean, number one, exhausted, but number two, just really excited about all the conversations that I had, all the connections that I had made. And I just really loved my job. I loved having conversations and connecting with people. But I always felt like I was hitting a ceiling. I'm like, I can't grow any further. I can't make this process better because it's being dictated by, a higher authority. And so I was venting to my boyfriend, who's not my husband, and I'm like, I just wish I didn't have to jump around restaurants to try to find what I'm looking for, that growth. And he looked at me. It was 4 o'clock in the morning because that's the time that I would get home from the bar, and he's like, "You should get into real estate." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Are you even listening to me? Like, I'm telling you about my shift and real estate. What are you talking about?" And so, like, I don't know how to explain it other than like I was completely oblivious to the world of real estate before he told me that. And so I stayed up all night. I looked it up. I was like, how do realtors get paid? What do they do? And he was absolutely right. It was exactly the path that I needed to take to be able to build my own business around my standards around what the experience should look like. And that's how I got started.
Yeah, I love that. So you got your license. You said you've always done high volume. So let's start at the beginning a little bit. So you got your license and obviously you were seeing success. Where did that business come from in that first year of your career?
Yeah, so we were told, I've always been with Keller Williams. I dipped out for a little bit, but it's not enough to talk about. So essentially, I've been with Keller Williams my entire career, and I jumped in. I did all the trainings. I went to every single class. I talked to every single mentor that was available, and they just told me you have to talk to people. So I was 24 years old. I didn't have any kids. I wasn't married. I don't get my nails done. I don't get my hair done. So I'm like, all of these options that, you're supposed to call and talk to were not available to me. And so I was like, well, I have to build my database somehow. So I paid for Zillow leads.
Yeah, yeah. So then you got really good at converting. I mean, like your skills as a bartender probably, you're it's easy to have conversations with people and make that connection, right? So do you feel like that kind of translated to those cold leads with Zillow?
Yeah, I think, just being willing to treat it like what it is. I mean, you're working. So I would go in at 8 o'clock in the morning and I would leave to go to my bartending job at 4 o'clock. So I was still working my bartending job full time. And it worked out well because I was at night. Um, and so just being willing to come in and put in the work. So I always had a very clean and organized database. I would put in their birthdays. I would send them birthday cards. I would do thank you cards. And I was crafting that experience, that, you know, exceptional experience for people to go through the process and for it to be memorable from the very beginning.
That's amazing. That you're like one in a million almost, Flora. I mean, I feel like most new agents don't listen. I mean, so a couple things I heard. One, you went and asked for advice. You were very coachable. You did what they told you to do, and you got organized from the beginning. And what happens whenever you set your business up like that and you really do base your business on your database, which you can fuel with cold leads, that's fine. But once they become a client, you stayed in touch and it's just going to snowball from there. I mean, it just grows every single year. The formula is simple, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it just takes time. I feel like everybody wants to come into the business, and I mean, there are people that sell 40 houses their first year. I get it. I sold 17 and I felt like a total rock star, but it just takes time. It just takes time to build those relationships, give them the good experience. Your past clients are your gold mine. And those are people that know, like, and trust you and have done business with you. So they're not only able to talk about you as a person, but they're able to also talk about their experience with you as a real estate professional.
So, how many transactions were you doing whenever you decided, all right, I need some help, so I'm going to hire my first assistant or whatever role that was?
I got to about 24, to be honest, and I think it was a little early. And like I said, once that failed miserably, then that's when I sat down with the technology that's available for transaction management. I mean, literally, you pay $12 a month, and you have this whole system that can help you manage those transactions. So I was doing like 24 transactions when I made my first hire, and it was
Okay,
inspired
so
by Keller Williams.
well, I was going to ask, or I know people that are listening and watching are going to ask, what technology are you talking about that's $12 a month?
It's called Next, and it's not spelled Next, but it's Nekst. It was actually so I'm very observant, and like, I like to implement new things. I'm not scared of trying new things. So I got an email from the transaction coordinator for a pretty big team here in Cincinnati, and I saw the little logo at the bottom, and I'm like, what is that? And so I looked it up and it was $12 a month. I'm like, I can afford that. And it was basically a checklist that you could just automate, and it'll send out emails to the lender, title, and to the listing agent, just saying, hey, how's everything going? Is there anything that you need? And it made me look like I was super on top of things.
I love that. So I hope that the moms that are watching right now, even if you're not closing 24 a year, like look into that. That's amazing. I'm going to have to look into it after this podcast as well. So, okay. I think that we also need to hear your failures. And you've said it a couple times, but give us more information on your first hire that failed miserably.
Yeah. So it was just the wrong person. I was spending more time reteaching her the steps. And I just had to, quickly realize that she wasn't talent. Maybe she was talent for something else, but not for real estate. And so instead of me getting frustrated with her, I just had to part ways. So I think that was the first thing. Also, 24 transactions really isn't enough to hire your first person financially. Um, so I would say around 40, 50 transactions is when you should start looking to hire somebody, which I did at that time again. And that was also a failure. I mean, I've probably hired 8 to 12 employees that were not a great fit. So just be patient with yourself, have grace. You can do the hiring process over and over again and still fail. Um, so the number one thing that I've learned, and I have a coach, and she helps me with this, is that culture is the most important thing. If they don't match your values, they're probably not going to stick around.
Yeah, that is so true. So we actually last year developed a course on how to build a micro team, and like that's the very first step that we talk about. So one, you have to know where you're going, so you have to have a very clear vision, but the next thing is your core values. You have to know like what your line in the sand is because unfortunately, not everyone sometimes you feel like, oh, it's just be a good person, right? Like you just think everyone has the same values as you do. But I, like you, have made many hires that were not good. And what I found was when it was time to get out of business with them, it was a very hard conversation if I didn't set things up in the beginning. So if you set up in the beginning like this is my value, here's what that means and here's how you can compromise it when they do compromise it, then it's okay, here's my value and it's okay if it's not your value. We're not aligned. So you can move on and do your own thing. It's okay, right? It's less personal. So yeah.
It's less personal. And also, what I've realized is that most of the time they're also feeling it. So, like, if you're feeling it, they're feeling it too. So, just being open to having that conversation and coming from a place of curiosity rather than, coming in for the, I'm going to fire you conversation. It's more so like, how are you feeling? I don't feel great. I need to quit is like literally half the conversations that I've had where it wasn't a
Yeah.
good fit.
So, and we say the same thing on the transaction. So I say really you should have a TC from the very beginning because they get paid when it closes.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a great other solution. It just depends on like what your skill set is. There are some agents that just paperwork is not their thing and it's just going to consume everything and about them and they won't be prospecting. So I mean that's a definite personal decision. But then beyond that, we say 24 transactions, you could possibly have like a part-time position and then the next step for us is 50. And at that point, then 50, you're like ready for that full-time hire. So like, let's talk about that step. What was your first full-time hire? What position did they fill?
My business is unique. So I work with Spanish speaking people in the Midwest. So there are 18 total licensees that speak Spanish, and only about 5 or 6 are actually producing agents. So we have a huge, huge piece of the market here. Um, and so my problem is not really generating leads, it is managing them. And so I think it's really important to have a coach to help help you analyze what those problems are, because you could just feel like you're stressed and you're stuck in the spot and not know what it is. But if you have a great coach that asks you great questions, then you can figure it out. So I figured out that that was my problem. It's like I was on the phone constantly pre-qualifying people, because another aspect of my business that's unique is that once they call me, they want to work with me. Like, it's I don't have to give them a whole presentation. Um, I think it's important to note too that the 150 plus transactions, 80% are buyers. So I'm buyer heavy. That's another thing that's
And that's mind blowing. So we definitely need to get to that too, of like what it looks like today. But from what you're telling me, your first hire was like an ISA, essentially,
yes,
right? Okay.
yes, yes. And so now she's called my director of sales because she manages a department and she has another ISA under her. Um, And so essentially what she does, I train her on scripts, objection handlers, and she just spends all day on the phone. So literally 40 hours of my day, of my week, are devoted to lead generation, lead follow-up, but it's not me actually doing it.
Yes.
She's spending the time, and she loves her job. So she was the one that I have right now is not the person that I hired the first time. The first hire that I made in that position did not go well. She was culturally a fit. She was great with the clients, but she was technologically challenged. And with a really tech heavy team like mine, it was just hard to overcome. Um,
But that's okay. I mean, that's part of the process, and I think we get so afraid of finding the wrong person or it not working out, having to get out of relationship, that a lot of agents are just too afraid to even try. Because 'Cause they're
I
like, "Well, what
know
if I have to fire them?" Well, listen, if you're gonna be a boss, you're probably gonna have to part ways with somebody at some point. So you're gonna have to get over that, right? But the reward is so much greater if you will take that chance. I mean, 80% of your clients of 150 transactions are buyers and you have 4 under 5. So that means you're probably not running around showing houses either.
that's correct. I have not shown a house in 3 years.
Yeah. So, tell me if this is too much. That's okay. We can you don't have to disclose, but a lot of people wanna know, how do you pay your ISA position?
Okay, so the ISA position is salary. I started off at $12 an hour. So she took a shot with me. She was a mental health therapist, making a lot more than that. And she's like, I see the opportunity. So that's where that culture, that vision, like if you're always sharing the story of your team, people will buy into that vision and take a chance. So she took a chance. She makes a lot more than that now. Salary position, and then I pay her a 5% bonus on all of her closed transactions.
Yeah, we do something similar. We have a salary base and then a bonus per transaction. And I was telling my team, like, my vision this year is for my team members to each be making 100,000. And
Mm,
so we're trying to navigate that. And some of them are actually offering some of their own services outside of my team. But anyway, I mean, I love that. So
mm,
she saw the potential in your team. And she
yes.
was like, I'm willing to take this high paying salary job and cut it in half probably to come work for you because I see the potential.
Yep. I know she makes more than what she made at her last
Yes.
job.
Yeah.
Isn't
And I think that another objection people have, Flora, is in fact, trying to think, one of my students, she's in Chicago. So that's kind of a ways from you, but maybe similar um like markets, I guess. So her thing is she doesn't think she can find somebody to work for her for less than 30,000 a year and or maybe even 40. And the second thing is, why would they come work for me if they could just be a realtor and they could make, you know, all the commission? So how did you get over that thought process and mindset?
I don't think it was a matter of getting over it. She did ask me to become a real estate agent, and you have to come from a place of abundance. You have to come from a place of abundance. I cannot say that enough. If you say that you're invested in the growth of your people and you shut a door, then you're not really invested in your people. So I know exactly what they want to do with their investments. I know exactly what they want to do with their life. I know what they're going for, and I'm invested in helping them accomplish those goals. So when she told me she wanted to be a real estate agent, yeah, it sucked. I mean, I was crushed, but I would never show her that. I mean, I was like, yes, I will sign you up for the classes tomorrow. She signed up for the classes probably almost a year ago, and she quickly realized that she did not want my job.
And
To go,
that's the thing. That's it right there. When we are high performers and we're used to this commission based and we see the potential, we see the income that we can get, like we're willing to take the risk so we can get the reward. But not everyone is like that. Some people really need that steady income. Some people want to shut it off at the end of the day. They don't
mhm.
want to have all of the liability. Like there's a lot, obviously, we all know that are watching right now, there's a lot that goes into being a realtor. And so when you recognize and appreciate and validate that person that, yeah, I can provide you with this steady income. I can help you reach your goals. Tell me what your goals are, right? I'm going to help you accomplish those. And that can fit within my world too, right? I think sometimes we
Yeah,
we make a presupposition that um, they want what we want, and that's just not the case.
it's not at all. She's
Yeah.
already traveled the world. She's already, I mean, she's been to, I think, 18 countries. She has her son, and she loves her life the way that it is now. She loves doing just that slice of the pie that she does, which is having those new conversations. She loves it. She loves instilling hope. Like for me, having the same conversation every single day, day in, day out, is like fatal. I can't. Like I need to have variety. Like you said, everybody's different. Everybody's just different. And you can't assume that somebody's going to be just like you. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Oh my gosh, we're out of time. I feel like we need to do like a part two. But maybe we can take 5 more minutes and talk about let's talk about your positions today. What does your team look like today? How many people do you have to close 150 transactions?
So I have a director of sales that we've been talking about. I have an ISA that is an assistant to the director of sales. I've got a transaction manager that manages the transactions. She also is in charge of our virtual assistants, which we have three. We had two when I talked to you yesterday, but I just hired another one. And the reason why we have so many virtual assistants is because I need somebody. I haven't shown a house or written an offer in 2 to 3 years. So they prepare all those documents from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. At 10 p.m., I'm screwed. I have to do it myself. Um, so she manages all three of the VAs. And then I have a marketing specialist that does our events because I do housewarmings for every single one of my buyers if they sign up for it, if they want it. Quarterly events, quarterly giveaways, VIP program. So she does all of that.
I love that. So, okay, so who you have a showing agent too, then if you haven't been showing houses, right?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. My legs, yes. Cami, my showing agent, yes.
So, how do you introduce her to your clients so that they're not like, "What do you mean you're not showing us the house?"
We talk about it from the very beginning. So it's all about setting expectations over and over and over again. So when they call me, then I'm like, you're going to be talking to Sharon. You don't want to talk to me. Trust me. Like she is so patient, so kind. You're going to love talking to her. When they talk to Sharon, Sharon's like, oh my gosh, you're going to be in such great hands. Cami can get you into a house within 30 minutes. Like this is her whole life is just showing houses, and she does such a great job, and she'll handpick properties and blah blah blah. And then Flor is going to be available to negotiate on your behalf, and she's a bulldog, and she knows all the agents in the city, and she is going to win you that house. So we just set up those expectations, and then if I do have additional objections, which sometimes I do, it's very rare, um, then I'm like, look, let's just play it out, right? I go and show you a house, you love it, you're so excited, They're reviewing offers in 3 hours. I have to get in my car. I have to drive back to the office. I have to write up your documents. And then I can start calling the agent. You don't want that wasted time of that hour and a half. That is if I'm even available to show you the house at that time. Like, you want somebody that's just dedicated to showing you the houses. It was really hard for me to overcome when my coach was telling me I needed to hire this position. But man, it took my business from 5 transactions to 78 in 16 weeks hiring a showing agent.
Whoa. Wow. So how much do you pay your showing agent? Is it just a straight up split, or how do you handle that position?
Yeah, I pay her 20% and she makes over $100,000 a year. So she's happy. She works probably 20 to 30 hours a month. Because I'm really good at getting contracts accepted, and she's really good at just going out there and getting them under contract. So I pay her 20% and then $300 gas stipend every month.
Love it. I'm doing 15% and then $30 per door, but I'm actually wondering if maybe that setup might work a little better. Although my showing agent is, I mean, the less she shows, the better. She's kind of the same way. She's all about
Yeah.
finding their perfect match. So I love that. Now, my showing agent, I do allow her to take leads, or to like if she has a friend or somebody in her sphere that she wants to show. How do you handle that?
I wouldn't mind that, but Cami is not about the paperwork. She does not want to negotiate. She doesn't want to even go anywhere near that. So she lets me list houses. She's never listed a house. She has no interest in ever taking a listing. And then for her buyers, she's going to be the one showing them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I just give her an additional 20%.
Oh, I muted myself. Okay, well, this podcast was like jam packed with information, ladies. So I hope that you found this super valuable. If you're thinking about building a team, remember we do have a mini course that you can grab, and it'll give you like all of the steps on how to start the process. Flor, if they want to send you referrals, what's the best way to contact you?
I can put my phone number on the screen here. This is my personal cell phone. I just want to jot it down.
Awesome. And you're probably on social media. So what's your handle? And I'll put it in the comments.
It's Day Maria Holmes, or you could just find me as Mrs. Flor McNally is my handle on. Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
Is it MCNALLEY?
LLY.
Just Y. Okay. Tell me if this is correct. So we got a couple. Yep. Okay, perfect. Flor, thank you so much. You were awesome. We admire you and love your business. Oh,
thank you.
You know what? I forgot to mention probably the most important thing. She has a 50% profit margin. Yep. That's amazing. That's like, I think the industry, what is considered really good is like 20 or 30% for teams. Yep. So yeah, 50% is insane, and it's definitely blowing out the mega teams out of the water, and you have a lot less headache.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I'm glad to hear that other people are doing it this way, because it's so much better.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll talk to you later. Thank you so much, Flor.
Bye. Thank you.